Hello everyone. Welcome back. Today, we've got some crucial news you don't want to miss. Let's dive right into the top financial headlines and break down what's happening. Bloomberg's report, Bond slump globally as traders rethink Fed's rate cut path. So, with traders reassessing the Fed's plans for interest rate cuts, global bonds have really taken a hit. Just look at the 10-year U.S. Treasury yield. It's hit for 0.2% for the first time since July. From the headline alone, you can tell that Wall Street is always on the lookout for potential crises. The narrative tends to amplify warnings about impending doom. That's just how the Wall Street conversation goes. The capital markets often seem unwilling to bask in any good news. Investors tend to keep a low profile when it comes to good news. It's almost like they're waiting to cash in quietly. But when there's a hint of danger or bad news, that's when people love to dive in and discuss. For anyone interested in investing or involved in financial activities, it's good to recognize this trend. Otherwise, you might find yourself wondering why the Wall Street chatter seems so negative and why it overlooks the positives. It's just how market sentiment tends to operate. Now, this report highlights that investors are grappling with the prospect of a slower pace of rate cuts in the US, leading to bigger losses in the bond market. This could potentially disrupt debt situations in various countries. On Tuesday, we saw a sell-off that pushed the 2-year Treasury yield up by 2 basis points, and the 10-year yield briefly surpassed 4.2%, a first since July. In Germany, the 10-year bond yield also hit its highest level since early September. This bond market chaos has even spilled over into Asia, with Australia's benchmark yield surging by 16 basis points. The US Treasury yields eventually settled back to almost no change, but the core of this sell-off stems from a fresh look at the outlook for US monetary policy. Given the strength of the US economy, and with Fed officials expressing caution about future rate cuts, traders are scaling back their bets on aggressive easing. What does this mean for the Fed's rate cut expectations? The market isn't really shifting its views on a potential 25 basis point cut in November or December. Instead, it's more about a downward adjustment in expectations for the magnitude of cuts next year. Currently, Wall Street is broadly predicting a reduction of about 10 basis points by September next year, with expectations that the Fed will bring the benchmark rate down to between 3.5% and 3.75%. This shift in expectations for rate cuts has major implications for Treasury yields, which quickly ripple out to the global bond market. So, how does this affect the stock market? You bet it does. I've mentioned before that the trading volume in the US bond market is 6 times that of the stock market, so any changes here can really move the needle. There are a couple of underlying reasons driving these shifts in the bond market. One is the upcoming US elections, and the other is the rising concern over a rebound in inflation. This combination of negative sentiment is putting new pressure on the capital markets. Today, Citigroup issued a warning that futures positions are indicating increased risk for the S&P 500, suggesting Wall Street is starting to feel bearish about stock market trends. Morgan Stanley was even more blunt in their report. No matter the election outcome, they predict the stock market will drop post-election. So, this negative sentiment is becoming a mainstream vibe on Wall Street. Now, here's an additional thought I want to share with everyone. When it comes to investing, it's pretty straightforward to gauge whether the outlook is positive or negative. Take China's recent bull market, for instance. People are quick to say it's going to drop. But the trickier question is, when will it drop? That's where it gets complicated. Some online influencers love to declare that this or that is definitely going to crash, giving you a direction to sell. But saying something will definitely drop is a different ballgame than actually pinpointing when it will happen. The key issue they overlook is timing. Talking about price movements without considering the timeline is misleading and unprofessional. Today, as the US bond and stock markets focus on potential risks, they're really studying the timeframe, specifically the 2 weeks leading up to the election. It's essential to pay attention to these potential risks, as these discussions are both valuable and meaningful. Next, today's top political story in the US is getting a lot of attention, and it's all over major media outlets, including the New York Times. The headline reads, FBI investigates apparent leak of Israel's plans to attack Iran. Here's what's going down. It all started with a Telegram channel called Middle East Observer. Last Friday, a blogger on that channel claimed they received information from US intelligence about Israel's plans to attack Iran. Now, this channel usually posts pro-Iran content, and its profile on X, formerly Twitter, shows its link to Iran. The person behind the account shared some documents that allegedly came from the US Department of Defense. These documents included what's called a visual intelligence report, which suggests that the Israeli Air Force recently conducted a large-scale exercise involving intelligence planes, possibly prepping for an attack on Iran. So, is this for real? Well, it seems like it is. The US Department of Defense and the FBI have started looking into it, and they confirmed that the leaked information is legitimate. Today, during a press conference, the FBI director announced that they're officially investigating the leak. An FBI spokesperson said they're digging into the circumstances around the leak and are working closely with partners in the Department of Defense and the intelligence community. Since it's an ongoing investigation, they didn't provide too many details. White House spokesperson John Kirby mentioned that President Biden is keeping a close eye on the situation and monitoring the investigation. He also emphasized that there's currently no evidence or reason to believe that any other sensitive information has been compromised. This whole situation shows that there might be some issues within the US military, potentially even pro-Iran sentiments within the Defense Department. Whether this individual is acting as a spy for Iran is still up for investigation, but leaking plans like this definitely crosses a line. Both parties in Congress won't tolerate any leaks like this, especially when it comes to Iran. I suspect we'll get clarity on this situation pretty soon because the FBI is actively tracking how the Iranian source got hold of this intel. The range of the investigation and the timing of the leak shouldn't be too hard to uncover. So, let's keep an eye on this investigation as it unfolds. Today, major global media outlets are highlighting a significant story, and we're sharing a report from South China Morning Post. The headline reads, Lee Hsien Loong says he is a political refugee from Singapore, has UK asylum status. This is about Lee Hsien Loong, the brother of former Singapore Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong. He recently announced on his Facebook page that he's been approved by the UK government to stay there as a political refugee. At 67, Lee Hsien Loong shared that he had a public dispute with his late sister over their family home and expressed concerns about potential abuse of power by Singapore's national institutions. Interestingly, their father, Singapore's first leader Lee Kuan Yew, also sought political asylum in the UK back in the day. In his Facebook post, Lee Hsien Loong even shared a letter from the UK Home Office, confirming that his request for asylum was approved in August. The letter states that there are valid reasons to believe he may face persecution, prompting the UK to grant him asylum. Now, here's my take on this news. The Lee family has created a political dynasty in Singapore, and their governance style has sparked plenty of debate worldwide. On one hand, they adopt some Western ideals, on the other, there are hints of authoritarianism and even dictatorship. The UK government clearly doesn't want to get involved in family squabbles, but the fact that they approved this asylum suggests that Lee Hsien Loong presented compelling evidence about the issues in Singapore's governance. In Singapore, the public generally accepts the Lee family's rule. With Lee Hsien Loong stepping down as Prime Minister, it's still uncertain if he's truly retiring and handing over power. We'll have to keep an eye on whether the ruling party's approach changes even after a power transition. This family feud is now under the global spotlight, prompting more scrutiny of Singapore's political system. So, what exactly sparked this conflict between Lee Hsien Loong and Lee Hsien Loong? On the surface, it's about their father's estate, specifically, a property in Singapore's bustling city centre. Lee Kuan Yew had a will that called for this house, which could affect traffic, to be demolished after his passing. Lee Hsien Loong and his sister want to follow their father's wishes and tear it down, but Lee Hsien Loong is firmly against it. While it seems to be about a house, it's really about family power dynamics, who gets to make the decisions and control the country. Lee Hsien Loong's siblings are unhappy with how he governs, and their disagreements have historically been political. This rift among Lee Kuan Yew's children could signal a shift away from the Lee family's long-standing rule over Singapore, making it a crucial event to watch. The fourth major news update: Philippines agrees to permanent deployment of U.S. THAAD missiles amid China's warnings. According to an AP report, the Philippines has decided to allow the indefinite deployment of U.S. THAAD missile systems on Luzon Island, even though China has issued stern warnings. As tensions rise between China and the Philippines over territorial disputes in the South China Sea, this move is seen as a way to strengthen deterrence in the region. Commanding General of the Hawaii-based 25th Infantry Division in Hawaii, Evans, stated that the recent deployment of the THAAD system is crucial for U.S. military readiness in the Pacific. This will enable joint training with Filipino forces using large weapons in Asia. The U.S. had previously deployed the HIMARS long-range artillery system, which can be moved between islands via fixed-wing aircraft. The THAAD system can launch Standard 6 missiles and Tomahawk cruise missiles, with a range exceeding 2,000 kilometers, effectively covering sensitive areas like China's southeastern coast and the Taiwan Strait. Now, here's my take on this news. The Philippines agreeing to the indefinite deployment of these missiles marks a significant shift in the regional strategic landscape. Just recently, China conducted military exercises around Taiwan, signaling their intent to assert control. With U.S. missile systems in northern Philippines, this could really challenge China's strategy, putting much of their operations within striking distance of these missiles. China's efforts to dissuade the Philippines from hosting these systems have clearly fallen short. Despite some initial agreements to withdraw, deteriorating relations between the two nations have led to this renewed commitment to U.S. military presence. This sends a stark message to China about its regional security posture. Furthermore, China's diplomatic and military responses seem less professional and serious compared to how Russia would approach such strategic negotiations. While the U.S. has missile deployments in both the Philippines and Japan, there's a possibility that Taiwan might follow suit. This reflects a narrow-minded and outdated approach from Chinese officials, akin to the attitude seen during the late Qing dynasty. Overall, this situation is fascinating and underscores the shifting dynamics of power in the region. That's all for today. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more updates. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.